Mr. Pond Boss.
Here we go. How you like
to
that, huh?
to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, coming at you live from Barret Ranch, Whit, Texas. And I'm pretty dadgum excited to be able to be out here and do this and hang out with the Barretts. We've got Richard Barret, his wife Shirley, and John. Now, I've been talking to John off and on for John, I mean, when you had the property back in Comanche, right? So several years, you and I have been talking about this stuff, right?
That's right.
So we've got some real world things we're getting ready to talk about. And oh, by the way, hanging out with Miss America 1975.
Oh, now I go by former Miss America.
Former Miss America. Okay, all right.
You don't have to go into years.
Okay. Ooh, okay. Former Miss America. Yeah. Okay. I like that.
You got people coming up.
Look at there. We do. We've already got 1870 people we know. Hey, there's Devin Thompson checking in from Honolulu, Hawaii. He manages smallmouth bass and peacock bass over there. Yep, Justin Schenck, he's out down around San Diego. So we got a pretty good crew. Oh, let me turn that off. Over there. Yep, Justin. Sometimes I forget that. Hey, you guys know the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section. Click like, share this to your timeline, and you are eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. Here we go, Pond Boss hat and a Pond Boss mug. Jacob West, if you're on there, you know what I'm going to say next. It knows how to keep, what do I say, John? Hot things hot and cold things cold.
How do it know?
We don't know how it knows, but it knows, and it does. So there's David Schneiderman. David, I got your message today. Just haven't had a chance to talk to you about it. Let's see, Frank James, Drew Bachman checking in from South Carolina, as I see. Frank James is from Louisiana. There's Billy Bates. Vito Barnes from Whitesboro, Kim Moore from Central Illinois. Let's see, Billy Bates, if I remember right, are you in Indiana? Forgive me if I got that wrong. But what we're going to do, we're going to talk about what the Barretts have done here. And I'm so happy that they invited John called 2 or 3 weeks ago and says, hey, why don't you come out and let's do some real world pond management and let's talk about some real world pond stuff. So I thought about it in about 2 seconds. I said, I love that idea. And actually, Richard made it happen. John was talking to him. He said, hey, Dad, what do you think? Dad said, get him over here. Well, I'm a lot easier than I thought I was going to be. And there's Debbie over there, Miss Flame 19. Oh, I better not say that. She is. She's Miss Flame. So anyway, we're going to have a great time. Tell you what, Richard, let's start with you. You guys had a piece of property in Comanche.
We did.
And then how did you come about this place?
Well, I actually walked into a broker friend's office, Matt Milliken's office, about 3 years ago and asked him what he was doing. He said, well, I'm about to list this piece of property, and he showed me a picture of it, overhead picture. First thing I saw was this lake, and obviously that was very intriguing. And I said, I think I'd like to go look at that tomorrow. And that's really the initial result of how this came together. We came out and took a look at it. I actually invited John. I said, John, you need to come with me. And John said, oh, I'm busy. I can't come tomorrow. I said, I don't think you heard me. You need to come with me tomorrow.
Son?
So he came with me, and it wasn't but about 20 minutes. We said, gosh, if we can put this together, let's do it. So we ultimately bought this place, and we've done quite a bit of changes in the homes and the various improvements that are on the place. And we eventually sold our place in Comanche. So it's been a transition, but it's been a fun one.
I love that. Now, when I went on Google Earth to look at the lake, you've added to the lake, but you did it for a different purpose with a great outcome. Looks to me like when you look at this lake on Google Earth, it just goes to 2018, and the lake was about a third of the size it is now. Although the footprint was there, but it looked like it just didn't have a big enough watershed. Mm-hmm. So what did you do with that? How did you do that?
We noticed over a period of time, particularly in the very hot months, that the lake would begin to lose its depth, so to speak, and we would see that the lake would be down 6 inches and then 12 inches, and we get about an inch of evaporation in the hottest days, 3/4 an inch, and we said, this is going to end up 5 or 6 feet down, and we talked about drilling wells and trying to keep the lake full and so forth. But one day we began to think about the fact that we had other watersheds on the property, and was there a possibility to change that watershed and divert it and move it into this lake? And we set on that mission and ultimately accomplished it about a year later. Matt Milliken again helped me again, and brought his excavation crew and brought Red over, which is his right-hand man, and Red got out here and just made it happen for us. And we built a second lake effectively by diverting water into this lake to keep this lake full.
So basically, right beside the lake is a creek
That's correct.
that had bypassed the lake. So what you did was you built a dam that was basically a diversion dam and channeled the overflow from the new side of the lake into this lake to provide more water. But in its own right, that lake's 12 acres.
Yep,
Right.
it's 10 to 12 acres.
Okay.
And it's got a lot more timber in it. It's got, I guess, a habitat that's created much better for the kind of things that we're wanting to do here.
With the fish and the experience.
And ultimately duck hunting and other
Okay,
aspects that
okay.
come up.
All right, so you saw it, and you saw the potential in it. Mama Bear, what'd you see?
I just saw dollar bills going out the window. I thought, well, there's my Christmas present and my birthday present. But I can't tell you how much it has added to everything. That second lake with the little canal that goes to it, it's just a lot of fun.
Okay.
Who would have ever thought it? I would have never thought it in a million years.
So out here, you can climb in a boat and fish in this lake, and then go through a canal or a channel, and then go to the other lake and enjoy the kids, the grandkids. So it sounds to me like Richard's main thing was here's a raw piece of property, a house that needed some love, a lake that needed some love, but you're thinking, holy cow, that's going to cost a lot. But you see it through different eyes, but your vision had to be a little bit different.
Well, when we first pulled up and I saw this lake as it was in its primary state, I went, oh yeah, I want this part of the property. Yes, So it was automatic love at first sight for me. And then our son John started looking, well, here's this milfoil that's in the water.
Okay.
And I thought, well, I've never heard of milfoil, but we certainly don't want it in our lake. So we started that. Really, John was the beginner of getting all this into shape, and now there's such pride in it. You know, we have such good times with it. Our grandkids come. We can fish. You know, we have a barge that we take out.
I didn't show him the barge.
Oh yeah,
I saw it.
We
Okay.
have this big barge, and all of us old folks can go out there, and we just kind of putter around and just enjoy being on the water and looking around. Because people who live in the city, they don't get the treat of looking at this every day like we do.
Exactly.
So it is fun just to go out there and just float around and see what there is to see.
I love that. So a perfect weekend here would be now see, you've got 4 kids?
We've got 4 children.
4 adult kids. And I bet they've reproduced some.
Yes.
So you have these little things called grandkids, right?
Grandkids, and they're all so smart too. Yeah, we have 5 grandchildren.
Oh, how fun.
4
Okay.
grandsons and 1 granddaughter.
And I bet they love to get out of the city
They
and
do.
come out here and hang
They
out with you
do.
guys.
And go fishing, and you know, it's amazing what you can catch on a Barbie fishing line. You know?
I love that.
Or on a big Hulk or whatever adventures or whatever they're called. You know, it doesn't take a lot to make children happy. And just to go around and catch the frogs that are jumping around, that's fun too.
And we actually, one of the grandsons was with us one day. We saw actually a school of catfish that had come from down the creek. You know, we saw them in school, and
Uh-oh.
I know.
I never knew there was such a thing.
Yeah.
We looked in there and I said, Richard, what is that? It looked like a pool of black ink that was moving around. And we went down there and it was catfish.
Bullhead catfish.
Who would have known?
That's good. Look at that. There's R.E. Thompson. He's checking in from over in Mississippi. I see Matt Milligan. Matt Milligan, probably one of the prettiest properties I've ever been on, he said. Look at there. How could that be? He knew. There's Mike Cottrell. Mike Cottrell's got property in Palapena County, right next to us here. There's Doug Cusick from Cunningham, Kansas. John Funk from Michigan. Dave Weber, he's ready to go see some fish. He's from up northeast of Kansas City in Missouri. Travis Smith checking in. There's Danny Mack from San Antonio. Clayton Bounds, good to see you. Shannon Olson. Let's see who else we got. That's good. Okay, so let's bring John in. So here's kind of my 5-minute perception of getting to know the Barretts. Richard saw some cool projects. I've already got it pegged. Richard's a project guy. So this lake, that lake, the channel, the house, a barn, another barn, guest house. You're the project guy. There's a lot. And Shirley?
I'm the hand me, give me. Hand me this, give me that. I'm the hand me, give me
okay,
part of this,
okay,
this partnership.
okay. Huh. Well, you got your own Can-Am with air conditioning.
That's right. That's right.
Somebody needs a shovel, you can do it in
we
class.
We install here at Ranch 52.
That's great. I love that. So you kind of, it sounds to me like you're the experience. It's like, how do we experience this? We enjoy the lake, get out on the barge or climb in the boat or drive the kids around and let's have family meals. And is it?
It's exactly all of that. It's exactly all of that. For the family to come in, sit out here on this large pavilion and just look and just see. About 6 weeks ago, we were out here on the pavilion. I said, Richard, what is that in the water? And he looked over there, and there was an axis deer driving or swimming from one side of the lake to this side of the lake.
Oh my gosh!
And he came out. And now, when was the last time you saw that?
I haven't seen an axis deer. Probably where I
No.
didn't see an axis. Didn't know they were there. Did you
Yes.
know they were there?
No.
So here
no.
comes an axis.
So there's lots of things that to just
Yeah,
look
and you just
see.
never know.
No,
You just never know. And you look out your window, and there it is. Flock of turkeys probably in the spring.
That's
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
no
Okay,
problem.
so John, you and I have been talking about this place for quite a while, and you know our conversations have pretty well centered around the fish and the milfoil.
That's right.
And the water. So, kind of, how do you see your role?
When my parents got this, everybody's kind of got their own vision. My mom thinks grandkids, family outings, all that. Again, as you said, Dad's the project guy. To me, I'm thinking all the recreation. How do we grow fish? How do we get ducks? How do we keep this clear? How do we make it for swimming? All those types of things. So I didn't really know anything about, even though there was such thing as lake management 3 or 4 years ago. And now this has become my baby, right? It's whenever I pull up, the first thing I do, it's not go in the house, it's go down and check water clarity. I'm not kidding.
I love that.
It's hilarious.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute because I mean you've watched enough of these shows. You know my spiel. It's happy water, habitat, food chain, the right genetics, and harvest plan. And so if you can bring all those things together in that order, it works. Now, we were driving around before the show, and as we came around the corner, you guys can kind of see behind me. Look along the edge of the lake. See it? Okay, so you can see what looks like some floating algae. Oh, by the way, it is. So there's floating mats of algae on top of Cara. Your milfoil's gone, right?
That's right.
Okay. And so you've got floating mats of algae on top of the Cara. And what's really, really interesting is as we were looking at that Cara, although it doesn't look like it's a good plant, here, if we were to go straight up and look down on the lake, about 6 to 8% of it has got aquatic plants around it, some of which don't look good. People would perceive it as looking ugly. But what's going on is that mat of dying, decaying algae sitting on top of Cara. So if they were to go in there and treat that algae to stop the mats from floating up, the Cara would explode. Now, Cara is an algae. So as we talk about aquatic plants, you need to know the species of plant before you decide what to do about it. Well, out here, Cara is an algae. Cara is an algae everywhere. But if that mat of dead algae was not on top of it, that stuff would just erupt and grow like crazy. So right now, it's the perfect habitat. So we're going to, in a minute, I want you to take the crowd through what you guys did to stock this lake. But first, you look at water quality. You've done some habitat work, right?
That's right.
And then you guys actually started over with this lake. Now, you guys bought this in 2018, is that right?
That's correct.
Oh, 2018. Okay, so So you guys decided that you wanted to renovate the lake, right?
That's right.
So you brought Jason Luster in. We'll throw a plug out there for Jason. I love Jason. So Jason came out and used some rotenone, right?
Rotenone and then the milfoil.
Okay, and he took the milfoil out, which is a highly invasive plant that reproduces by seeds, roots, and fragmentation. So it's a good plant to not have. So then you came in and you took out the fish and you started over. Now you guys stocked it in what I would call a non-traditional method. So we're going to talk about that. So let's, John, take us through kind of the process that you've gone through there.
So Luster, I think, came through late March or early April of 2019. Rotenone, the lake was probably 60-70% covered in milfoil. It was really, really bad. So he came through, sprayed it all. We had to wait about a month and a half, right, for all the rotenone to clear out. And then Luster came back and brought in all the bluegill, the red ear, the fatheads, the shad. You know, he brought it all in, let them do their thing for about 3 or 4 months. And then we came back to my parents before they moved here. They had another place up the road that had some bass that we had gotten from another place. So we...
Camelot Bell.
Camelot Bell.
People out there know about Camelot Bell.
That's right. So we got is what we could catch from the creek in there, from Camelot, and brought them over here. And then Buddy and I went down the road to another place at Kimberlin and
John's Pond.
That's right, and got a couple from there. So
Okay, so how big is this lake?
about 30 total.
So it's 30 acres and total.
With the two.
Oh, with the two. Okay.
Yeah.
But now you did this. You stocked these fish before the other 12 acres, right?
That's right.
So you got about 18 acres behind
That's
us.
right. And then we also got some carp.
Triploid grass carp.
That's right.
Because you got a fence up.
That's right.
So you went through the permitting process. You wanted to head off that milfoil if it decided to come back.
That's right.
Okay. And so now with the bass, you stocked how many bass in 18 acres of water?
Probably 50 or 60, 50 or so.
Okay.
Total.
And how many of those were big?
30.
30 big ones and 20 little ones. Okay. And 18 acres of water. So guess what's going to happen? Now that was in fall of 2019.
That's right.
So then the fish went through Corona. And now we're on the backside of that. And so I'm going to ask you some questions that's going to help everybody out there understand what's going on. So now you stock those fish into 18 acres, which is about 2 fish per acre, 2 bass per acre. So guess what happened in the spring of 2020?
There's about 10,000 acres or something. There's a lot of them now.
So those fish have the opportunity and the space that they could reproduce, and with low numbers of bass to eat young bass, I would expect to see explosive numbers of bass. Now, out of those big numbers, if one of those 4-pound bass laid its maximum eggs, that's 80,000 eggs, and that's from one fish. Wow. So odds are pretty high that you started with 750,000 eggs that went from that to 300,000 babies, that went to 150,000 fingerlings, that went to 75,000 4-inch fish, that went to 10,000 fish that are about 6 to 7 inches long, and 500 of those would be 9 to 10 inches long, that have grown up and begin to fill a slot. So you've got those handful of big fish that are going to continue to get big, most likely. Some of them won't, some of them will. But their offspring are now what's going to fill the lake up. So one of the things that's going to be real important to do is this fall, I'd start weighing and measuring a few fish and just see, because the lake should have a tendency to get a little bit crowded in there with bass. And I'd want to know that because you stocked a little bit low numbers to start. Frank James says if you have Cara, you probably have pretty high alkalinity, good for grass shrimp and glass shrimp. Frank, you're exactly right, because if you don't have calcium carbonate, if you don't have lime in the water, you're not going to grow that Cara. If you take that Cara, have you ever picked it up and squished it? It's crispy, crunchy feeling, and you smell it? They call it skunk grass. Guess why?
Because it stinks.
It's got a real musty odor. So But I like that as habitat. So that's another reason I think it's real important that you preserve your plants that you have now. That film of algae mats on top is keeping that care from getting too dense, which allows little bitty fish time to hide. Now, one thing to remember, I've said this before on the show, is when a baby bluegill is first hatched, it's about that big. Its mouth is about that big. About 1,200 of them weigh a pound. If you keep them alive 45 days, they're 30 per pound. And there's going to be a whole bunch of bass out there. They're going to thank you for letting those bluegill get big enough to take and eat. So let's kind of circle back a little bit more. In a minute, John, right around 7 or so, we're going to cut loose and go down and see if John can catch a fish. Or we're going to look at some plants and go down to the dock and look at water clarity. And then if you guys have questions and I can see them, we'll take them. But I know you guys have got questions for me. So let's hit some of those questions that you've got about managing the lake or water quality or whatever you got. What do you got, John?
Wow. I could do this for a couple hours.
We got time, don't we? Former Miss America. We got time, don't we?
We've got time.
Probably
Okay.
the first thing I always think about is the water clarity, right? When to fertilize, how to do that. Can you just pour it all in there? All those things, right? So I go
Okay.
down there, check am I just fertilizing the muskgrass or what am I doing? Right? That would be the
Okay.
first thing.
I've got a spider crawling up my leg.
We fertilize those too.
Yeah, it's doing good. So the way I got a call from Larry Hensley today, who lives in Odessa. He's got a 30-acre lake near Brownwood, and his question to me was, should I fertilize again? Now he fertilized in the spring, had some rains, diluted his fertilizer. He didn't get a real good bloom. So he calls me once a week, at least. So I had him go buy a Setchi disc so he could check his visibility. Well, he checked it. He fertilized it, didn't work. Fertilized it half a dose, didn't work. Fertilized it a fourth dose, got a perfect bloom. So the water, a good bloom, the water turns green, and hopefully in May, early May, mid-May. His happened about the second week of June, and his visibility was 24 inches. So he called me, he was a little panicky. He said, it's never been that dense and that green. I said, it's okay. Your water temperature's still in the mid-70s, you're okay. And so then he called me last week, and I said, and I always ask him, what's your visibility? And he pauses. So it's kind of like I used to umpire baseball. Had a guy that we umpired with that had 1 year's experience 9 times. Think about that for a minute. Well, I think, and I've told this to Larry, I think we've talked about this one time 10 times. So he checked his visibility, bought him a Setchi disc, and he said, well, I think it's 30 inches. So I said, okay, let's measure it. Well, it was 36 inches. If it had been 30 inches, I would have told him not to fertilize it anymore the rest of the year. But if it's 36 inches, that's enough that his plants could run away in water that could be as deep as 5 or 6 feet. So I told him go ahead and fertilize it with a 1/4 dose. He did it. His visibility went back up to 24 inches. That way his coontail and milfoil isn't going to explode on him. So John, what I'm going to tell you is the way fertilizer works is you want to get it mixed into the water column. Whether you do it from a boat, there's a number of ways to do it. What kind of fertilizer do you use? Do you buy it in a bag?
Yes.
Okay. And so is it a pond fertilizer, or do you go to the hardware store and get it?
No. It's a deal. Matter of fact, I can go grab it. I've still got some.
Okay.
And maybe you can comment on it.
Okay. Let's do that in a minute. So as you do that,
I've got a question for you.
Okay, let's go.
Let's talk about feeding bluegill.
Feeding bluegill, okay.
Because we have a feeder here. You
Yes.
saw the fish
Texas
feeder.
Hunter feeder right
Yeah,
behind us.
Texas Hunter feeder.
Right.
And I know you, from time to time, talk about Purina and talk about various things.
Okay.
How often do you like to see them fed? And, I mean, clearly, the fish are lined up and ready to be fed. They love it. And, I mean, we could go down there and turn it on, and they'll be there to.
Feeding frenzy.
It's a frenzy.
Do they blow up on it pretty good?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fun to
so
watch.
okay, so let's talk about feeding fish. Why would you?
Why do we feed them? Let's
Okay.
talk about why we feed them.
Yes.
And what that does to the overall growth of the bass.
All right. So there's several ways to look at a feeding program for bluegills. You know, now in a lake like this, you've got bass, you got bluegills, started with fathead minnows, and I think you added red-ear sunfish, right? Okay, red-ear sunfish won't eat fish food. Largemouth bass, unless they're conditioned to it, which won't be many of them, they won't eat it. But the bluegill will. So the purpose to feed the bluegill is to either supplement them to draw them in closer so the kids can catch them, or you truly want to grow some bluegills. So if you want to grow some bluegills, there's two or three different approaches to that. One is we want to feed them so they can reproduce more, so they can have more babies to feed the bass, which that's the direction you were going there. Another reason to feed them is just so that you can turn them into a game fish in their own right. You know, tagging into a 1.25 pound, 1.5 pound bluegill that's about as big as a dinner plate, that's pretty fun fishing.
Yeah.
You know, and you get a 6 or 7 year old grandkid on the business end of a rod that's going like that, you know, with a fish going in circles like so. That's just, you know, you video stuff like that. So the kind of feed you use is going to be determined by what the mission is. If the mission is, say you lived on Lake Granbury and you wanted to bring bluegills and fish into the dock for kids to catch them, you just feed the cheapest fish food you could get. You know, catfish food, $16, $17 for a 50-pound bag, that's the food. Out here, where you want to have them reproduce better and get bigger, my choice would be Purina's Aquamax Sportfish MVP. Now, that's a fish meal-based fish food that Purina's designed especially for lakes just like this, with these fish just like this. It's got 9 different pellet sizes. And of those 9 different pellet sizes, there's a fraction of them, close to 20%, that slowly sink through the water column, because if you were to put a camera underneath the water and watch the fish eat, the most aggressive, fastest growing fish hit the feed as soon as it hits the water. But fish, believe it or not, have personalities. So there's some of the smaller ones that don't want to get involved in that frenzy, you know, and so they're lower in the water column. Well, depends on how much fish food you feed. The big fish are going to eat it, you know. So using this MVP product, you've got enough feed cascading through the water column that these little bitty fish can eat it as well. So you're feeding different sizes of the fish. Now that fish food is $45 a bag. Now I know you got sticker shock, and it's probably going to go up because fish meal is not getting cheaper. But it's like comparing donuts to T-bone steak, you know, and those fish are going to gain better, grow bigger, and serve a different function if you're feeding them a better fish food. It's just like, you know, we've got a little lab that she's not a lab.
She's an Australian Labrador.
Okay. Australian Labrador. I mean, you guys have seen Girlfriend. I don't know where that came from.
She's nothing like
Debbie
that.
just looked at me. If she had a dart, I'd have had one right here. And so we're picky about the feed she eats. You know, we want her to be healthy, and you want to do the same thing with your fish. So that's the way we go. Okay, so now, John, you got that fertilizer. So let's hold that up, and let's just, you know what? Let's go through the label of it. It's Perfect Pond Plus, made by Biologic. So it's a 1248-4, right? All right, so that's a highly soluble fertilizer. And on the back, there's a label. Now, the alkalinity, and I don't want to get really harsh into the heavy-duty science of this, but the more alkalinity that you have, the more calcium carbonate, the more lime that's dissolved in this water, it's going to absorb some of that fertilizer and take it out of production. So lakes with high alkalinity have to have a little bit more fertilizer than lakes of lower alkalinity. Now, with the amount of rain that we've had this year here, I bet your alkalinity is probably knocking on the door of 100 parts per million. Looking at the amount of Cara, I'm going to say 100 to 130 parts per million. So that I would follow the label on that bag exactly right. Now, you know, what's the 3 most important things about real estate?
Location.
That's right. With fertilization, it's timing. So you got to get that fertilizer dissolved into the water. You can't just, even though that's soluble, you don't want to just pour it over the side of the boat and let any of it sink to the bottom. you want to dissolve it into the prop wash. Or you can buy a little Venturi device that you can put on the lower unit of your outboard motor and turn that fertilizer into a slurry in a bucket and suck it into the prop wash and dissolve it. The bottom line is you want it dissolved in the water. Now, on July 13th, do you want to be fertilizing for the first time of the year? You don't. Because odds are high that you've already got rooted plants that are starting to reach their maximum potential, and odds are high that they're going to take up the fertilizer. That's one reason not to do it. It's also, as warm as the water is, you'll get a plankton bloom quick. And if you over-fertilize just a little bit, your visibility can go from 4 feet to 6 inches, and then you're calling me in a panic because your fish are bobbing for air because you just about killed them. So this time of year, you want to be picky as to whether or not you're going to fertilize. Most of the time, people fertilize as a follow-up this time of year, but that's a great fertilizer. So, John, where do you want to go?
Right, we're on second, third year of starting over, culling bass. Which ones? How many?
All right, I'm going to throw that back on you. Let's figure that out. So, you mentioned that you guys, that when you can come out here off the dock and on one day catch one fish, no fish, but on a good day, what happens?
The other day we caught 50-something in an hour and a half.
How big were they?
Golly, some were 4 or 5 pounds, and they were very healthy, all of them.
So how big were they?
1.5 pounds on average.
Okay.
2 pounds.
All right. Okay. So now when you tell me 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, what that tells me is you need to be weighing and measuring some of those fish.
Okay.
So I'd set myself up a way, put a tape in the boat where you can measure the length,
Yep.
write some weights. Oh, I tell you what, Smart Fish app.
Yeah.
Look that up. Smart Fish app. My good friend Wade Bales over there with Quality Lakes over in South Carolina has created an app where while you're fishing, you can plug in the length and weight of that fish in your iPhone and it will grade the fish. So now as long as your fish have a grade of 95 or better, then you're okay. But what you'll see happen is like right now they're all fat and healthy, but at some point, what goes up must come down. So you've got the garden growing. At some point, you're going to see some sizes of those fish level off like this. And the way you're going to know that is those 12-inch bass that you were catching this spring that weighed 12 ounces, now those 12-ounce bass weigh 10 ounces. And then a handful of them weigh 9 ounces. Some of them weigh 8. So what's happening is that size of bass are losing weight, which means they're getting overcrowded. They're overeating their food chain. So there's 2 fixes. You can add more food or you can cull some bass. One thing I was talking to Joel Bedgood today, and Joel's probably watching the show. He just got through building a 9-acre lake near Bennington, Oklahoma. And his question to me today was, Bob, should I have a hatchery pond? And I said, you've got the space for it. You've got a bulldozer and you got a track hoe. You should build a hatchery pond because here's why. All the sport fish hatcheries with, a while ago I said 1.3 million ponds.
Yes.
Well, guess what? The demand for pond management is going up. The demand for fish to stock is going up. The hatchery numbers are going down. So I'm talking to more people now. I think it's a wise idea in some cases that you can build a hatchery pond. A 10th-acre hatchery pond, you can grow 10 to 15,000 baby bluegills every year for not a whole lot of money and put them in the lake. So where I'm going, John, is if you don't have the resource to feed them, then your resource is going to be harvest.
Yeah.
So you got to be culling some fish. But the fish will tell you, when you start catching 14-inch bass that did weigh 1 pound, 7 ounces, and now they weigh 1.25 pounds, something's going on with them. So start tracking that. And if any of you guys want a spreadsheet where you can track the lengths and weights of your fish, I'll send one to you, and we could talk about that. So what do you think about all this so far?
It's quite scientific. I used to think you'd go down to a creek or a lake and you'd get a fishing pole and cast your line and catch fish.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot more to it than this.
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
the feeder.
The feeder just went on.
I get that.
Holy cow, can you see anything? Oh, the fish are going. You know what? I bet we can go down there in a minute and set it off again, and they'll do that again, won't they?
Yes, they will.
All right. Well, let's see. You know what? It's 7:05. So let's. I want to get you involved a little bit more, Shirley. So where do you see all this going in the next few years?
Well, selfishly, I just see myself as saying, everyone come here.
Oh.
Everyone come here and let's have fun. This is what we bought it for. We didn't buy this just to sit here and fertilize the water and the fish and just to look at it. We bought it for everyone to enjoy. And it's beyond the bounds of just our family too.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many friends who live in the city and they love to come out here. They love to come out here and just sit out here and let the wind blow their hair and just to look and see what there is to see. It's amazing. You kind of take it for granted when you're here every day and see a storm blow in and come across the water. It's wonderful.
People don't get to see that.
No, you
Yeah.
don't get to see
And
that.
you know what? One of the things that I love about what you guys are doing is I hope we can have a conversation in 4 or 5 years and you tell me how many kids caught their first fish out here.
That would be cool,
You know?
wouldn't it?
Yeah, because that's
right.
huge fun.
That is.
So you're excited about who's going to come share it with you, share it with family and friends. You've built it. If you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they will come.
That's not just
right.
baseball.
And
right?
especially they'll come at dinner time.
Yeah, heck yeah. If you feed us, we will come. Well, that's good. What any other? I think we're going to go down by the lake in a minute
Okay.
and see what's going on.
Good.
What other? You have any other kind of closing thoughts?
This is probably a random thought that only a woman would say, but I've noticed so many turtles around here. Is that a good thing? In fact, where the channel is, I get my binoculars. I keep them on my dining room table. Doesn't everyone keep
Well,
binoculars on their dining room table?
Sure.
And I look out there, and there will be 30, 40, 50 turtles, big turtles out there. And I'm thinking, what if they're eating my fish?
No, they're not. What I tell people is if a turtle eats a fish,
She
the
has
fish
gotten real
deserved it.
protective about her fish all of a sudden. She didn't care anything about this a year and a half ago, and now she's very protective.
Oh,
Very
okay.
protective.
Did you notice how she said my fish?
You know,
Fish.
I love that. You're owning this. That's great. Well, turtles are part of nature. Now, they can be overabundant and eat your fish food, but now snapping turtles, they're going to catch fish and eat fish because that's how they make a living, but they're not going to disrupt the fishery at all. So now I've
You have just saved some turtle lives. with
Really?
that, yes.
well, you know
I
what?
do like to shoot 'em.
It's okay to thin them out.
Thin them out.
If you think you have too many, then you may have, but they're not going to mess up, the fishery at all.
Okay.
They're not gonna disrupt the ecosystem. But if I'm paying $45 a bag for fish food, and there's 68 turtles showing up to eat it,
Yeah.
then I'd rather there be 10.
Yeah.
Bob, we have noticed at the time when that fish feeder is on a regular basis, the turtles show up about 10 minutes before. It's amazing.
Yes, they do.
They know the timing.
They do. Now, when you see that, what I've done is just change the timer on the fish, the feeder where it goes off. Actually, here's a funny story. I was working on a project in upstate New York shortly after we bought our place, and we'd built a pond. And Debbie, I was talking to her one day. She said, "Where's your shotgun?" She called me. She said, "Where's your shotgun?"
That a girl, Daddy.
And I said, "Why? What do you want?" She said, "There's this big, tall, gray bird out there. The feeder just went off, and it just speared one of your big bluegills, and it's eating it." I said, "Well, honey, that's a great blue heron. They got to make a living too, and it's okay." And she said, "Well, I didn't know that." Well, I got home 4 or 5 days later, sitting out with her, drinking coffee, and the feeder went off, and that dadgum heron flew in and caught a bluegill about that big, stabbed it, and I got up. She said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to go get the shotgun." She said, "You're not going to shoot Lurch, are you?"
Lurch.
She named that
She
bird.
named it.
Lurch.
Yeah. No, I wasn't going to go shoot Lurch. But where I was going is I changed the feeder to go off at midnight.
A different time.
Yes, I set it to go off at midnight. Lurch went away, made an honest living on somebody else's pond. When he showed up, and he had a low fence, fair chase hunt out
Okay,
there.
he had to work.
He had to work at it.
Go to work.
And if he had to work for it, I'm okay with that.
Well, how did the fish know to come?
It's like Pavlov's dogs. They get conditioned to
They get
it.
conditioned to
Yes,
it.
sit, treat, sit, treat. when that feeder goes off, 3 or 4 of them will investigate because they're just aggressive by nature. And it's like, you know, when there's a shooting and the police run to it, everybody else runs from it. Well, bluegill are the policemen. They run to it. So when it hits the water, they're coming to it. And when they see it and they eat it, it works out pretty good.
Yeah.
So all the friends are out there watching them. Then they show up and they
say,
eat.
hey, y'all come.
That's right. That's right. And then it's even though it's not what they would eat in nature, it's healthy. They like it. They get conditioned to it. You know, so now if you change the timer, they'll recondition. It'll take them 2 or 3 days, but they'll show up when it's supposed to go off and it's not there. So then they'll be a little puzzled. They'll go back, and then when it does go off, they can feel the vibration. They can feel it hit the water. Then they'll come to it.
It's most entertaining.
It is fun, isn't it?
Most entertaining.
All right. Well, let's. Richard, what else you got? Other questions you want to?
I've got another question.
Okay,
for
come
you.
on.
Adding structure to the lake. So this lake it's a pretty clean bowl when it was built. There was nothing in it. We have since added some oak trees and some cedars, those types of things to give some kind of structure and protection, something for the fish to hang on. Talk a little bit about that. We just did the best we can, adding what we could where we could, but ideally, how do you do that, and what are you looking to do?
Well, the way I see that, John, is we're trying to raise several species of fish of different sizes of those species. So we got bluegill this big, that big, that big, that big, that big. Bass all the way from there to off the charts, right? So each one of those size classes of those different species of fish have different habitat requirements. And if you can supply that, then you have a lot healthier, happy fishery. So if you know what most guys do is they don't know what they don't know, so they'll go take those big oak trees, drag them out there, put 6 or 8 oak trees out here, and pretty soon they're covered up with largemouth bass. But they don't understand the value of the chara with the algae on top of it. So they don't have the nursery ground for the little bitty fish. They don't have the spawning beds that bluegill. I mean, if we learn about these fish, we know that bluegills spawn in colonies.
Yeah.
They make craters about as big around as the hoof print of a cow.
Yeah.
You know, and if we can supply that for them, then they're going to reproduce better. If they reproduce better, then we have more of them. It takes 10 pounds of bait fish for a game fish to gain a pound. So if you don't have the right kind of habitat for those little bitty fish, it's going to affect on further up that food chain. So diversity's good. I mean, how many times do you hear that in today's conversations? It truly is. Diversity is great out here under the water as well. So a mix of that, you know, when you tell me cedar, I know that cedar is going to last 6 or 8 years, then it's going to break down, but it's perfect density for little bitty fish. And if it's adjacent to those big oak trees, then what you've done is you've set up the nursery, you know, right beside the cafeteria where they're going to go eat. So those things underwater to create a community gives you a better chance to grow better fish over a longer period of time.
Okay.
Does that hit it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to see what's going on here.
I'm going to see if I can get one.
All right. And you know what? We're going to come down there and join you here in just a second. John's going to go see if he can catch a fish. There's no pressure on John. We've only got, looks like 60 people looking and probably 500 that we don't know about. So no problem there, buddy.
John.
No pressure, John. Debbie might need to go help you. You know, it is, here we are, July 13th, and it's got to be 85 degrees.
It's just wonderful.
How could it be any better? Let's see what all we got here. Let me see if I can make this thing work. See if we got questions. We'll tackle those. Timothy Chestnut from Oklahoma City. James Allen in Kentucky. Jim Allen, got to talk to him the other day. Has that logo fish been identified as a Lusky? I like that. All right, let's see here. Jason Nepstad. He lives over near Fort Bragg, North Carolina. His goal in life has become to build what you have in the background.
Oh.
That's one of his goals. That's it. Let's see. Travis said, I got a friend that built a pond last year. I told him to feed Purina, gave him a bag of 400. He used it all this year. Went by his pond Sunday. He was feeding cat food and catfish food. What does he feed to his cats? Does he feed fish food to his cats? Okay. Troy Todd, Smart Fish app. Oh, yeah, I did notice they added bluegill to it. There's Fred Bingham's checking in from Columbia, Tennessee. Fred's traveling. He's from Illinois. Mike Garcia Chico from Seguin. Jerry Siebert, Oregon. Christopher Aguilar, Daddy is here. Yeah, Crawdad Daddy, down from South Louisiana.
He's got one.
He's already got a fish?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have to wander down there. All right, you know what? Yeah, Vito's kids are like Pavlov's dogs when they turn the oven on. Yeah. All right, let me see here. I'm going to hit this question right quick, and then we're going down there. Jonathan Hernandez, the largemouth bass in the pond seem to love a hook. Haven't got any bluegill in a while. Any reason why? Advice, I love catching bass in Mom and Dad's pond, but ready to see a bluegill again. Change technique. If you know, I don't know if you're using night crawlers on a 1/32 ounce jig head and bob it about 4 feet off the bottom. Try that and see if that works.
Here he comes.
Is he coming up here with the fish? That's hilarious. I love
Good
it.
boy.
You show him how healthy or not healthy.
John Elmer wants to know if you can still play the flute.
I can still toot that flute.
I love
I can
that.
still do it.
That's
Who
great.
said that?
It's John Elmer. Ask Shirley if she can still play the flute.
Well, hey, John Elmer. Yes, I can.
Have fun.
That's great. Okay, let's see what you got there. Holy cow, let's see that
He's a
fish.
little one.
Okay, let's take a look. What do you see? Hold him right up here where people can see that fish. All right, so you got a fish. So tell me about what you see on that fish.
Man, I don't know. What am I supposed to be looking for?
Well, okay, we're judge, jury, and releasing her. All right, so smells like a bass. All right, so this fish is I'm going to say a relative weight of about 95. So that's about what it should weigh. This fish has got to be about a year old, and I'm going to tell you, you need a few more red ear.
Okay.
How would I know that?
That right there?
Bingo, that's exactly right. If you look at that fish right there on its fin, see those little knots right there?
Yes.
Those are little bitty grubs whose primary host are snails.
Oh.
Well, guess what red ear sunfish eat? They eat snails. So if we were to take these little knots right there, they're little bitty.
Yes.
See the little bitty
Yes.
yellow worm right there?
Yes.
And no, that's how they get in and get out. They go in at the base of a fin, then they'll end up underneath the skin.
Woohoo.
This fish is a little bit upset, but its relative weight is probably 95. This fish is in good shape. So if you're weighing and measuring these fish, at some point when they start getting crowded, you're going to see their weight start to go down a little bit. Another thing I look at is their gills. And their gills, bright red, not burned. It's just, they look kind of like a feather, which they should. If they have little knobs on them,
Yes.
then that's not good. But those fish's gills are great. There you go, up close and personal fish gills. All right, John,
Good job.
you withstood the test, dude.
That's right. Only took 2 casts.
Atta boy, what are you throwing?
Spinnerbait.
A spinnerbait. All right, we are going to wander down by the lake and look at water clarity and talk about some of the things, get you a closer look at the vegetation and maybe a few more fish.
Good.
All right, we'll see you ladies back here in just a little bit.
All right.
All right, here we go. I'm going to take this loose. All right, there you go.
You want a moist paper towel?
My wife wants me to. All right.
Go ahead.
My wife wants me to wipe my hands off.
Can you see?
I can.
All right,
That's,
we
that's
good?
good. That's good.
All right, let's roll.
All right. I better wait on the moist paper. You know what? I'm not waiting on the moist paper towel. Let's go.
We'll
Have
do that.
fun.
We're going to get.
All right. So as we go, you can see the lake. Heck yeah, just let's go like we're doing. Just show them the lake. Like we said a while ago, this side of the lake covers about 18 acres. It's attached by a channel over there to the left.
It's okay, sure. It's all right.
Here comes the moist towel. Wipe the fish slime off the bonbons' hands. Thank you. Okay, so now we can see over there. Let's see. Yeah. You can see right over my left shoulder, there's a channel. So what that channel is that's a dam that goes around and blocks off the creek. And that's how they were able to funnel more water into here and create a second lake in its own right. So let's go down here. John, did you say you have a Setchi disc?
I do.
Cool.
You want to turn that feeder on?
Yeah, let's go see the fish feed. That'd be kind of fun. What kind of feed are you guys feeding?
It's the Perina and then the Luster's.
Okay.
We've got a mixture of both of them.
Okay, so you got it mixed. Okay, so now we're going to set the feeder off. Texas Hunter feeder. This looks like an LM 175. Holds about 70 pounds of fish food. It can be set to go off at least 9 times if you want it to. So there goes the feeder. There goes the feed. And you can see some bluegills coming up. Now here's what my eyes see. I see about 5 or 6 different sizes of bluegills coming out of the weeds. Now down here in these weeds right here, I'm seeing a little bit of bushy pondweed. So actually, you know what? If you folks can see, you can see some algae floating on top. But if you look under and you see a kind of a lime green plant, that's Cara. Just beyond the Cara is some bushy pondweed. And then you can see the bushy pondweed. See, it's kind of more of an olive brown color. Can you see that? And what we'll do in a minute is we'll get you to throw out here and pull some up and we'll look at the difference. So let's go to the dock. Hey, how fun is this, huh? Is this pretty fun? It's fun for us, I know that. All right, John, let's go to the end of the dock. Let's get your Setchi disc, and let's show people what it is. Because I talk about it all the time, but we don't ever show one. Okay, so there's a Setchi disc, folks, right there. And that one is probably 8 inches in diameter. He's got monofilament tied to it, and he's got tape every foot?
12 inches.
Every 12 inches. Okay, so now the proper way to use this thing is to drop it in the water, just real nice and easy, and watch it. And what you can see is as it goes down back and forth, it'll get to the point that you can't see it. When it gets to the point that you can't see it, then raise it up just a little bit, just to where you barely can see it. That's your visibility depth.
Man, it's a lot more clear than it needs to be.
Okay, so what's your water clarity here? So you're down close at the bottom and you can still see the Setchi disc, right?
Close to the bottom, it's probably 40 inches right now.
Okay, so visibility is about 40 inches. Now here's the pros and cons of that. And here we are, July 13th, and we're in north central Texas. 40 inches is actually okay. If the visibility was more like 18, 16, I'd be a little bit worried about this lake. Now, that's where I'd want it to be, back in May and early June. But now, 40 inches is a little bit too much. So, in this case, you fertilized earlier, right?
About 3 weeks ago.
Okay, and tell me what you did.
I grabbed a big tub, so a big, moving tub.
Okay.
Poured some in there, right? Mixed it with water to try to dilute it, right? And then came off the end of the dock and poured it in, and I would do that over and over again until...
And how much did you put out?
I think I did half a bag in this one and half a bag in the other one.
Okay, I'll tell you what I would do. Now, this is part of the strategy. I do believe that fertilization needs to have strategy behind it oftentimes. So what I would do is I would go out in the boat or go off the barge and fertilize again, but do it only in the main body of the lake where it's the deepest. And get the fertilizer, and I would use a whole bag. Okay? And I would mix that fertilizer into the water out there in the main body of the lake and maybe 1/4 of the lake. Now that's for this lake. And now I might tell you the same thing for your lake, but we're looking at this lake. And what that will do is that will give you a concentration of fertilizer that's going to migrate with the wind, and you're going to get a rapid plankton bloom. And when you get that bloom, it's going to disperse over the rest of the lake, and you're not fertilizing these plants.
So get it away from the docks into the middle where
Yes.
the bloom's happening there. Okay.
Yes, yes. And that way, if you can get a bloom started out in the main body of the lake and then let it spread across the lake, then you're going to be fertilizing only plankton and microscopic algae, not going to be fertilizing plants.
How does someone know how much of, or at least for our example, the bag, how much do I know to put in there? I know you're saying, time it and
Yes.
look at it every 2 or 3
Yes.
weeks, but how do I know how much I'm going to put in there to know we're going to get a bloom?
Well, the way the fertilizer works is, what was the number, 12, 48, 6?
That's right.
So 48% of that is phosphorus. So if you got 10 pounds of fertilizer, 4.8 pounds of that's phosphorus. That's enough to do about 2.5 or 3 acres of water.
Okay.
Okay, so you're trying to get a pound of phosphorus per acre this time of year per surface acre of water, because most of that fertilizer is going to mix in the top and stay in the top and promote the growth of the plankton in the top. Now, most of the time, those bags are labeled where you can kind of understand it, but out here, that's what, a 25-pound bag. So a 25-pound bag is going to have 12 pounds of phosphorus in it. 12 pounds of phosphorus would fertilize about a 12 to 15 acre lake, and you've already hit it once.
Okay.
So if you add another pound of phosphorus, that should generate a good plankton bloom for you, and it's going to spread out and work even better. But I'm not going to tell that to everybody. I'm not telling that to John Funk up in Michigan. Not going to tell you that. So I see Becky Maxwell. That's one of Debbie's buddies. Doug Cusick, I see him. So now, can you think you can catch another fish?
Let's give it a shot.
Let's see if we can catch a fish. If he can't catch a fish, then we're going to catch some plants. Let's see what John can do. So you're throwing a spinner bait.
Out in front of the feeder.
Throwing it right out in front of that's what I do. Heck yeah. Out in front of the feeder. Right along that vegetation line. Pretty slow retrieve. A while ago it took 2 casts, and now that the camera's on you
That's right.
and the fish know it. When my middle son was about 4, he could sing the Star Spangled Banner, and he could also sing The Devil Went Down to Georgia. But I could not get him to sing the Star Spangled Banner or The Devil Went Down to Georgia in front of family or friends. And that's the way these fish are probably going to be here. So I've already given you an out if they don't do their part. The fish got to do their part.
We'll give one more.
All right, so let's throw one more time, and then bring in some plants, if you don't mind, and then we'll look at those plants and talk about them. And what you got?
727.
Okay, all right. We're going to wrap up here in just a minute. This has been really fun. Okay, so, okay, John, why don't you see if you can catch some of those plants with your spinnerbait, and then we'll look at those on camera and talk a little bit about those plants and how significant they are and what their role is. You know, plants, I think plants a lot of time get a bad name, and anything in excess is bad. If I eat more than a pint of ice cream once a month, that's bad.
So walk down there. I'm going to reach down here and just grab
You're going to grab some?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's see what John's going to come up with here. All right, let's see. Real world stuff here. All right, so this is all bushy pondweed with filamentous algae on it. So, oh, wait a minute, hold it. There's some Cara. Okay, this is where being a biologist is helpful. This is going to look a little goofy to you, and you're going to scratch your head and say, what? That's Cara, and that's bushy pondweed. So when you look at this mass of plants that he's got, it's a mix. And this is all brand new growth. This is young growth that's just about to mature. So most of this is bushy pondweed with a few sprigs of Cara. You know what? Let's see if we can get some that's a little closer to the shore.
Yeah.
And let's look at that. So here's the take-home point from that demonstration. The take-home point for that is you got to know the plants. If you don't know, because here's the deal. Cara is an algae, and if you wanted to treat that, you'd be using a different herbicide than you'd be using. Okay, this is mostly algae with a whole lot of pondweed in it. So this is mostly bushy pondweed with a few sprigs of Cara. But I'll tell you something else. Bushy pondweed ought to be a lot more dense than this. If you look out there by the feeder where we saw that olive gray patches of bushy pondweed, there's no algae growing on it. It has no competition at all. So it's growing like crazy. This stuff here, it's kind of stringy. It's like grass trying to grow in the woods. You know, it's being out competed by that mat of algae laying on top of it. So this could be one of those cases where I'm going to tell you, leave that algae alone. Don't mess with it, because what it does is when this bushy pondweed is not dense, that makes for much, much, much better habitat for your fish. So folks, we're going to wrap it up right there. And I'm so glad you guys joined in. It was so much fun hanging out with Richard, who's the cameraman now, and John. Folks, guys, this was great fun.
Thank you for coming out.
How much
This
fun,
was
yeah.
wonderful.
Richard, this was great. I appreciate it.
coming.
So guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. We're going to wrap it up like that. Look at here. Take a look at this lake. Absolutely beautiful. Perfect night. So until next week, adios.